Welcome to another episode of the Sports Sentiment. I am your host, Nick Urias, and we are back once again talking college basketball around the Mountain West. Good to be with everybody here on a Thursday afternoon or whenever you may be tuning into this on the audio side or on the video side, youtube.com/@thesportsSentiment. First and foremost, appreciate all the love. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll get that out of the way first and foremost. Really appreciate everybody just supporting around the Mountain West. And to the community out there in San Jose, all the San Jose State fans, appreciate for everybody tuning in on a consistent basis. Like I said earlier this week, it's a fun time of the year for most teams now. Three games left in the Mountain West regular season. In a week and a half from now, we're going to have ourselves a bracket, and just for the Mountain West tournament and conference tournament start next week. We're going to have ourselves a guest on this podcast to preview San Jose State and Colorado State. That's happening this Saturday, 2 p.m. Pacific at the Provident Credit Union Event Center. Steve Ivey is going to join us, who, has his own podcast talking Colorado State men's basketball. So very excited to get Steve's insights on just CSU hoops and just kind of the roller coaster season that they've had this year. Out there in Fort Collins. But San Jose State's coming off a win, 86-80 versus the Air Force Falcons. We're going to dive into that game. We spoke with Tim Miles earlier today on a Thursday, just kind of recapping his thoughts on the 1-1 road trip at Boise State at Air Force, and then going into Colorado State back on their home floor. What does a game like that look like? And we're just going to, go back and forth, talk about the matchup there. Last time San Jose State was on their home floor, they had the double-digit upset victory versus the Nevada Wolfpack. And look at that Nevada team right now, coming off wins versus Utah State and New Mexico, just kind of third-partying this Mountain West right now. So this league is squirrely. I'm done kind of, just making predictions on everything right now until we get the bracket finalized, because, man, oh, man, this Mountain West conference is just, flip a coin every night. We're at that point of the season where, seeding matters and all of that good stuff. But, as far as home court matters still, of course, but man, you're seeing some games and some results and, some box scores that are just looking squirrely all over the place. And, sometimes that happens, but man, oh man, this league right now, there's no, I guess, I don't know if you want to say there's like not a number one team, after seeing some results. I think that ultimately just makes for a very fun tournament. I know the league in the Mountain West as a whole is down to what we've had in years past. But man, you're starting to see that this Mountain West is cannibalizing everybody right now. And what does that translate on a neutral court? I think some very close games and some games that are going to come down to the final 2 minutes. And ultimately, that's when, coaching matters. That's when, X's and O's and, clutch time players ultimately matters. Who is, better in a 5-point game with 5 minutes or less. All of that stuff matters on a neutral court. Obviously, everybody's going to travel. Some institutions, fans will travel more than others, of course. But you're starting to see that this Mountain West, there's just so many high leverage games. Every game matters, especially for teams like San Diego State, New Mexico, maybe not so much Utah State. You got a team like Nevada and Grand Canyon just jockeying for fourth place on that first round bye. So it's a whole lot of fun right now. Can't wait for the games this Saturday going on next week before we officially cap off the regular season on March the 7th. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to play our less than 5-minute interview with San Jose State head coach Tim Miles. Get his thoughts on the road trip, of course, and then heading into Colorado State. And then when we're done with that, we'll come back, talk San Jose State's 86-80 win versus the Air Force Falcons.
See,
off your back, first true road win of the season.
Yeah, I'm happy for the guys, right? And I thought we did a lot of good things against Boise, too. We played okay on the road. UNLV, CSU, Boise were competitive, just getting over the top, right? And to be able to do that against Air Force and be up 11 late and then hang on, right, was good. It put guys in situations that are meaningful, and I think will go a long way going forward.
And I know Adrian Myers, 21, 23, and 34. I mean, he's been on He's been on a scorching hot run the past
26-8, I think, is their 3-game average, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's really playing at a high level right now.
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, to tie a school record, 8 of 9 from the 3-point line, eight makes threes, ties the school record. To do it in the best amount of attempts, shortest amount of attempts, the least amount of attempts, really cool stuff. Happy for him. And the rebounding part, and remember, it wasn't only a couple games ago, he had 8 assists in a game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it shows you his versatility and his talent.
And then Colorado State on Saturday, just what do you guys need to do to get off to that another win?
Yeah, just first of all, when we defend all right and rebound, we're okay. I mean, like when we get back and get organized, get in a position. Colorado State's playing at a high level in transition. They're shooting the ball extremely well from the 3-point line. Obviously in the foul line, they're getting fouled. So that's why you got to get back and be organized. You can't be in flux. You can't be rotating and all that fun stuff. So I think getting to their 3-point shooting is really going to be important.
Yeah. And look at Jermaine Washington. Obviously, first game back from the injury. Just how big has he been, implemented back in the lineup?
So he won our GATA award, our GATA, Get After There, right? And that's the team. That's the guy that does the best job with all the hustle stats. Loose basketball, steals, diving on the floor, not allowing his guy to score. And Jermaine won that award, and we present it after every win, right? And so I think that was critical. Like, he came in and made an impact. He made a whole bunch of winning plays when we were down 20-13 defensively to get us going on offense to be able to have a lead at halftime.
Yeah, and then just, again, 3 games left in the season. But how important are these final 3 games going into the tournament?
I mean, our only chance to make the NCAA tournament is to win the Mountain West tournament. So everything you're doing is geared to that for the last 2-3 weeks. If we can get some guys on the floor, I'll feel better. In terms of health-wise, I'm not sure where we're at with that. But at the same time, the guys on the floor are doing a good job. They've improved a great deal from beginning the year to mid-year, and now taking another jump forward here at end year.
Yeah. And just going back to Adrian Myers, obviously when we saw that early injury at the beginning of the season, maybe not as productive after, but do you feel now he's just playing with more sense of confidence in his game?
No doubt. Once you go and you start being a productive player, which he's never been at the collegiate level, you start to produce and you start to feel good. And then you start to produce and win. It gives you a new sense of confidence and a whole bigger sense of, all right, I can do this, and he can.
Coach, Colorado State, 5th slowest team in America. I mean, just how do you, dictate the tempo in a game like this in your own building on Saturday?
They've been running more recently, the last 4 or 5 games, and they're on a 5-game winning streak, I think. And so, I think that they felt like they needed to go more, not be so predictable, and that's showing off with winning basketball.
And then one more for me. I mean, Ali Farokhmanesh. I know you guys got your you guys got a tight relationship. You're the guy that kind of gave him a chance at Nebraska. Just talk to me about that relationship and just how he's grown as a coach in his first year, leading the CSU.
He's a close friend. He's when I hired him at Nebraska, I don't know how long ago now, but a long time ago it seems like, you could tell he was a special coach. He was a former player that had an accomplished track record as a player. And so some of those guys come in with a little ego, and so he came in to pour himself into player development and to pour himself into game planning and whatever he could do to help the program, recruiting, of course, and did an outstanding job in his 3 years with me. And then he went with Nico Medvedev-Drake, who's another former assistant. Like, this would be a great match for you guys, and it has been. And to now coach against Ali has been great. He's exactly what you expect. He's great with his guys. He gives them chances. Very good offensive coach, and he's a lot of fun, and we talk all the time. Now, this week we're not talking much. You're not calling me. What's going on, Ali?
Love it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Just last question for me. Obviously, with 2 more home games, just what's your message to SJSU students, fans?
Yeah, come out and support these guys. It's they're playing their best basketball, so let's come on, cheer them on. We've got some really dynamic players that have been playing really well. It's a lot of fun, and I hope they come out and support us.
There you have it, San Jose State head coach Tim Miles. Always appreciate Coach Miles' time. Talked to him on the Thursdays following the Tuesday night Mountain West game that they always have. So always appreciate Tim Miles giving us a few minutes every week just to kind of recap these games and talk what's going forward here with coming down the stretch here in this regular season. We mentioned, we're going to get into our Colorado State breakdown, but I love it. He just smiles immediately when he mentions Ali Farokhmanesh, CSU head coach. Tells you got a whole lot of respect for what he's going to be going up against on the other side. And should be a fun one there. But as far as what we had on Tuesday versus San Jose State and Air Force, man, this game kind of went what we thought heading into it when we kind of broke it down on Tuesdays or Mondays podcast. Just kind of what we envisioned. Like, hey, Air Force is going to come out and hit shots. They've hit shots in the first halves in a lot of their games this year. They came out firing from three, and they were hitting some threes where you're like, okay, dude. And that's what Air Force is going to do to you, and that's how they've stuck in these games. Lucas Hobbin, 5 for 12 from three. And we said a lot of his shots are going to be threes. 12 of his 14 shots were from three. But Hobbin came out firing. Greenberg hit a couple. Robinson hit one from the parking lot, and you're like, holy mackerel. It was an 11-2 Air Force run to start the game. And it was just one of those, it's like, okay, you can't we'll see how long this is sustainable for. Just because we've seen this, story a ton from the Air Force Falcons throughout Mountain West play. We mentioned their most recent game prior to the San Jose game being the UNLV game where they came out and hit some shots and, they were fire on all cylinders for a half, right? So that was, something that you kind of knew San Jose was going to get adjusted to. But, man, the story of the game is most certainly Adrian Myers. I mean, he had 18 first-half points. He's playing the best ball of his career right now. Ended up finishing 34 points, a career high, 21 points, 23 points, and 34 points the last 3 games. So this is most certainly a threat right now. 8 threes. He tied the school record for most threes in a game, joining Trey Smith and Noah Bauman. So, I mean, that tells you something right there that he's playing at a really high level. And it was to the point where in the second half, Coach Miles is saying, we're going to go isolation ball with Adrian Myers. And that's something that we really haven't seen all too much. Now, there was portions of the game, especially to close out in the final 3 minutes or so, where I'm like, okay, you got to calm things down with Kobe Garland, because I did think that they were going a little too overly reliant with maybe, a Jermaine Washington who returned in this game, or, Adrian Myers in that sake. I'd much rather have this team go in the hands of Kobe Garland, because the sample size is large enough now when he's going to make the right play. And you're seeing it right now. Another 5 assists, 23 points, 7 straight game with 20 plus points now. So Garland is playing at an all league level, even though the winning hasn't really been, hasn't really translated to that. But between that scoring punch right now with Garland and Myers is really something good that I think needs to be mentioned. Melvin Bell did exit this game at Air Force in the first half with the shoulder injury, was able to return and start the second half. Something worth mentioning. But, SJSU, you saw that Air Force just has no real rim protection, and zero resistance. There was a lot of easy buckets in this game. So many defensive breakdowns. And, that stinks for the Falcons that, that program is just at where they're at. But we did mention to keep an eye on Sanders and Hobbin. And I do think Cam Sanders, if he decides to stay at Air Force, could be that Ethan Taylor in a couple of years where, he's the number one option and he's the leader and he's kind of, rallying everybody. And, for a freshman, 20 points, 5 boards, 5 assists, 0 turnovers. He looked pretty solid out there. And, SJSU, they haven't been in, too many closeout situations as far as the second half and, closing out a game in clutch time. But there was a miscue where Myers fouls, Cam Sanders on a 3-point shot. And you're like, oh boy, here we go. Right. So, that's most certainly something they're going to learn from. But I have to say, was a must-win game, like we talked about early in the week for San Jose State. Air Force has just been on a downward spiral, 21 game losing streak now. And if you're San Jose State, you got the second easiest schedule down the stretch. Coach Miles said it in our interview earlier. Like, if you can get some bodies back, he doesn't know when bodies are coming back, but if they do, this could be, a team that, catches a little bit of momentum and, becomes a very frisky team in the first round of the Mountain West tournament. So I'm very excited to see, where this team goes, because look, Garland is playing at a, first second team all Mountain West level right now with the research, with the emergence of Adrian Myers. If you could get Yafet Mooney back, Jermaine Washington, I mean, he's still like first game back. He only took 7 shots, but he's out there. You're going to get defense from him. So interesting team right now with San Jose State. They got Colorado State on Saturday. They got the Fresno State game at the Save Mart Center, which is always wild, on Tuesday. And then they get Wyoming on Senior Day next Saturday, who is playing a little bit better, Sundance Wicks' crew as well. So very interested to see how things go here. But yeah, San Jose State, 6-point win, handled their business on the road. First true road win of the season for San Jose State. Was 0-11 heading into this one. Now 1-11 heading back home to San Jose to host the Colorado State Ram. All right, San Jose State and Colorado State going at it this Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific, winding down the Mountain West regular season slate. Like we said, they're the last game for San Jose State. You got 2 of the final 3 games at home, and we got ourselves a guest on the podcast to talk about the game. Covers Colorado State men's basketball, does game previews, reactions, player interviews. You can find him on YouTube at the Crackers College Hoops. Just covering, CSU men's basketball. Does a great job, and you can find him on pretty much all platforms. Steve Ivey. Steve, thanks for taking some time out of your day for me to talk San Jose State and Colorado State. I'm excited for the matchup. The game in Fort Collins was very, it was interesting, just like a lot of San Jose State road games. They're in it until, they run out of gas. I'm very excited for this Saturday.
Nick, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I love talking CSU men's basketball, and I love talking Mountain West Conference basketball. And as I was talking to you offline, I'm going to have a pre-recorded interview with Tim Miles on my regular Thursday evening show tonight. And of course, I go way back with Tim from his time at Colorado State. And so I'm really looking forward to this game on Saturday. CSU has been playing very, very well on a 6-game winning streak. But as I talked about with Tim in my interview, your team, the Spartans, has looked very, very good in the last few games. That win over Nevada was incredibly good. They played well. 16-point win over a Nevada team that handled CSU easily in Fort Collins. And then, a loss, but then follow with a good road win at Air Force, and a very impressive performance. And so, the thing, and you talk about this on your stuff, and you hear it all the time from Tim, but injuries have just absolutely decimated the Spartans. And it's interesting to watch what happens when you get one player back. All of a sudden, you don't have to play 4 players 40 minutes. And you can see the potential of where this team could be heading. So I'm excited to talk about the game this coming Saturday. I think it's going to be a great matchup.
Absolutely. And, I failed to mention this to Coach Miles when I talked to him earlier today, but the past 2 games, he was taking his own time out after the media so that they just had extra time in the huddle for his guys. Like, it was getting that crazy to the point where, because Garland was playing 4 or 5 straight games on 40 minutes, and he finally got a break for the first time in like 2-3 weeks. It's just ridiculous with this team. But, injuries are a part of the game. It's been like this now. It's under the Tim Miles era. It feels like for like 2 or 3 years now, where they kind of just lose the wrong bodies, or, the depth is just kind of challenged, or, they're either Euro guys that are, inexperienced, or, he's bringing in a freshman pipeline that isn't ready yet. And, there's a weak point somewhere, right? And the league is also really good. So there's that to go along with it as well. But, it stinks, but they're playing better than what they were like in January. And, their road games, which has been it's always been an issue, for San Jose State, just because the home courts and the atmospheres are so good. But they're starting to get a little bit better and keeping those road contests a little bit more closer. But I'm excited for this one. Talk to me about Colorado State, because they started out 9-2 in the non-conference, and I'm seeing them at Battle for Atlantis on Feast Week, and you're like, man, this team's really hitting the ground running under first year head coach Ali Farokhmanesh. And everyone was like, when they started out 9-2, you were interested to see the first year head coach in Mountain West play and just the physicality that goes along with it. Hits the rough patch in league play, but has really came out firing here in the month of February, undefeated this month.
Yeah, it's been an interesting season. As you said, opening 9-2, and the two losses were by 2 points. Both games, CSU had the ball for a final shot, and a guard named Josh Pasquarelli, who was an absolutely phenomenal 3-point shooter, missed. One was a home loss to Denver University, and that was just a horrible game. The other loss was to a good Virginia Tech team. That's a bubble team in the tournament for the NCAA to make the NCAA tournament. But it was a good start, very good shooting team, and they were playing without one of the returners. They only returned 2 players from last year that had played, 2 big men, Rashaan Mbemba and Kyle Jorgensen. And Rashaan got injured late in the summer, didn't come back until the DU game that they lost, and then the Virginia Tech game. And then he got hurt again in the Virginia Tech game and sat some more. And then, CSU came back, played well. Finished the non-con 9-2, but opened at Utah State, which was going to Logan is always tough. And Kyle Jorgensen, their big, who had been playing very, very well, was injured in the first 4 minutes. So 4 minutes into the Mountain West Conference season, and CSU was down their 2 best big men, and had basically no one who had returned from last year's team. They had added 6 players in the portal. They had added 1 freshman into the rotation. They had 2 redshirts from freshmen from last year. And so that was basically who was left to play. And it was trying to conjure up lineups in the very start of the Mountain West. And it opened poorly, a 40-point loss at Utah State, I think a 13 or 12-point loss to Nevada in Fort Collins. Then they went on the road and they won at Grand Canyon with backup bigs against a very big team, and then came back home and lost immediately to New Mexico by 10 points. And so they were already behind the 8 ball with 2 home losses, 1-3 in conference, and it wasn't really expected that that's where they'd be. And then, but Jorgensen was out for 4 weeks. Mbemba started coming back. And it was a bit of a slog, those first few games. And so everybody's going, oh, I can't wait till we get both those guys healthy. Well, Nick, to be honest with you, once both those guys got healthy, it's funny, I had a talk with Tim about this earlier today. Just because you get guys back from injury doesn't mean things click right away. And the Rams went through a period where they were decided they were going to play both Mbemba and Jorgensen together as the 5 and the 4. And they're both very, very good players, but the speed of the team and the speed of play really slowed down. And they aren't a fast team to begin with. They're a very methodical half-court team. And when they started playing those 2 guys together, all of a sudden the tempo just went to, it was just so slow. It was like CSU, it was like the Rams were playing in mud. And we'd watch games in Moby Arena and go, oh, the groaning that was going on. And next thing you know, they're 3-7 after the first 10 games. And then they go up to Wyoming, big rival. Obviously, the big rivalry is Wyoming in conference, and they were dreadful. They got beat 68-57, and they were never in the game. I don't think they went down 10 points early, and I don't think they got back closer than 4 or 6 points, and never led. And changes had to be made, and at that point, everybody was talking about, my God, they're slow. My God, the shooting is going away. A great shooting team can't shoot because they're being defended. They're too easy to guard. Their movement is bad, everything. And the coaches made a couple of changes. Number one, they took maybe the best player on the team, Jevin Muniz, who's the only senior on the team. He transferred from Florida Gulf Coast. Maybe the best player, but they moved him into a bench role. He was still playing starters minutes, but to give a little more punch off the bench. Then the other thing they did was they split up Mbemba and Jorgensen, and they now share a position. It brought back Cary Booth, a 6'10", highly recruited player who started his career at Notre Dame, played a year at Illinois, moved him back into the starting lineup, moved a sophomore named Jace Butler into the starting lineup, who transferred from Washington. He was a top 100 high school player. And all of a sudden, they started playing a little better. And in fact, the first game with San Jose State was the first game where they really had made those changes. And since then, they've been gradually building. And it's been kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to go back to the San Jose game, where it really started this new run that they've been on and continued. That was, an 8-point loss for San Jose State, trailed by 1 at halftime, had a lead in the early stages of the second half. And, that was, San Jose State's, and, now that you're walking me through this now, CSU only shot 38% from the field. That was one of the better, defensive, field goal defensive performances that SJSU's had in league play. San Jose only shot 35%. That's not going to help, of course. But, getting out rebounded by 20 at that game, including 9 offensive rebounds. I mean, Mbemba was just the guy in that game. He had a double-double in that one. I'm interested to get your take on Mbemba here, because I remember San Jose State and Colorado State played 2 years ago now in the Mountain West tournament. It was the first round. It was the, not so great SJSU team that had 2 Mountain West wins on the season. And, they were hanging around in that one, and Mbemba was only a freshman. And you could kind of see where, he was coming off the bench. He played about 5-8 minutes, off the bench for that team with Stevens and Clifford and company. And you've just kind of seen this jump from him every single year. And I'm just worried about him for San Jose State's sake in this game, because he's one of just those, bruising bigs that's going to out rebound you. And I've talked to him in person too at media days. He does not let up to anybody. He is a fearless guy. He's not going to back down and bow down to anybody. What have you seen just from the progression of Mbemba? And it's been all over the place because of the Jorgensen taking a step up this year, right?
Yeah, it's not just the Jorgensen taking a step up, but Rashaan with the injury that set him back. He was the best player in the summertime. He was all lined up to start ahead of Jorgensen, and then when he got hurt, it gave Kyle the chance, and Kyle jumped at it. Kyle played really, really well. But in terms of Rashaan, you mentioned him 2 years ago. He didn't play a lot. He came off the bench, but he was very, very valuable on that 24 team that went to the NCAA tournament. He 6'7", 250. He does a lot of the little things well. He's a very physical player, very, very fundamental. He's European. He's from Austria. I grew up over in Austria, so he's very much a kind of a fundamental big who sets screens, knows how to pass the ball, knows how to maneuver underneath the basket, good footwork, knows how to put the ball on the floor as well. And so the one thing that he did, if you go back and you looked at his record in his first 2 years before this year, if he played 15 minutes or more in a game, CSU was something like 26-4. They rarely lost if he played 15 minutes. He has a tremendous influence on the outcome of games in terms of winning, and that's really been his contribution. I will tell you one thing, Nick. When people watch him play on Saturday, keep an eye on the way he sets screens on the perimeter. CSU's offense does not run well without good perimeter screening. Rashaan is exceptional at freeing up three-point shooters. And, Tim's teams traditionally are very, very good at defending the three-point line. CSU rarely has trouble getting three-point shots off when Rashaan is playing. So just keep an eye on that.
Yeah, well, I think that's the most important key to this game, just because Colorado State is, first in the Mountain West in three-pointers made. we know San Jose State could, most certainly, hit their threes as well, and especially in certain spots this year. Defending the three for me is the most important, I guess, element to this game for San Jose State's perspective, just because of just how many threes that CSU is going to get off and how many they're capable of making. I mean, I couldn't believe that San Diego State game on Saturday. They started out 0 for 6, and the next thing you know, they're 6 for 6. And the whole game pretty much turned, and San Diego State really had no punch back from there. That's obviously probably one of the more important elements to this game, just the 3-point variance, as always in these games, right?
Yeah, and it is. And, I'm not sure. CSU, I mentioned Josh Pasquarelli earlier. Josh is a tremendous shooter. Of course, your guy went 8 for 9 the other day. Josh has had 8 for 8 and 8 for 10 games this year. He's as good a shooter as I've ever seen, but he injured himself in the Wyoming game. He's missed the last 3. I'm not sure if he's going to be back, but there's still, I think we have 6 or 7 guys that shoot over 40% from 3. It's an incredibly a good shooting team. You talk about the San Diego State game. They got hot. They shot the ball poorly against Fresno State the other night. They shot a lot of threes, and at one point they were 2 for 13. They finally decided maybe we should go inside and score inside. I'll be honest with you, this team can get 3 happy, and I think that's when they become beatable if they're missing them. They can shoot lights out, but they can shoot themselves out of games. It's the classic live by the 3, die by the 3. The motto at CSU that started with Nico Medved and really has continued with first-year head coach Ali Farokhmanesh, who's very much a Medved disciple, was like the 3, but love the paint. And if this team isn't going inside against San Diego State, they're going to run into problems, I think.
Yeah, I'm very interested just to, the Colorado State teams, since I've been, monitoring them, and having the pleasure of seeing them up close the past couple of years. They've always kind of had the go-to guy. They've had Stevens. They've had Clifford in the pipeline, and he's in the NBA now and was terrific, last year, of course. But now you kind of got like this, 5-man crew that averages 10 a game.
Yeah.
Is there a guy that you feel more comfortable with, down the stretch in some of these games where, hey, it's a 2-point game with a minute left and we need a bucket. Who are we going to? Because you had the luxury, we know it's going to Neek. Now it's like, and it was going to be a good result more often than not.
Yep.
So what is it this year? And, for this team to make a run, because they're playing as good as anybody in the league right now.
Yeah, they're playing well. I would say, getting to the thing about not having a star, Clifford last year, we had Isaiah Stevens before that. You had go-to guys, and this year certainly it's a different situation. But as you said, you got a lot of guys that can score. We have CSU, so 5 guys averaging in double figures. The next 2 guys average 9 points. The next guy averages like 7 points. So they have 8 guys. They've had 7 guys score 20 points or more this year. So they've got a lot of guys that can score on any given night. But like you said, there isn't necessarily a go-to guy. If you're looking at a game in the last minute or two, you're probably looking at Jev Muniz, who plays the 3. Like I said, he comes off the bench. He's starting now with Pasquarelli out injured, but it'll be Muniz handling the ball. You might see Jace Butler handling the ball, but it'll be Muniz and Kyle Jorgensen most likely running some kind of action between the 2 of them. And then you always have guys on the floor that if you collapse on those 2, you're going to have 3-point shooters in the other positions. Brandon Rexsteiner, who's a 40% 3-point shooter. Kerry Booth at 6'10" is a 40% 3-point shooter. And both of those guys can park on the perimeter. And Muniz is the best, most polished passer on the team, so he knows how to find people as well. So, but I would say it's going to be Muniz and Jorgensen working some kind of action between them.
Fair enough. You kind of mentioned, just the whole lineup switch, since, CSU was kind of going through it in January. How about just the emergence of Jace Butler, newcomer, coming off the bench, just not really into the equation. Is he kind of like the glue guy for this team, or like what is it? Because I feel like he brings, he's just terrific two-way player that hasn't gotten enough, I feel like, respect amongst the league.
Yeah, he's emerging. As you pointed out, Nick. I don't know if he's, the respect he has the respect within the CSU fan base for sure. And you can, if you sat with me at games and talked to the people around, you'd say, God, I love Butler. People were hoping he'd get moved from a bench player. He was a six man, and he got moved into a starting position. He's a high energy guy who plays both ends of the floor really well. He usually gets to guard one of the toughest players. We'll see who he gets on. I don't think he'll get Garland. We'll throw point guards at Garland to try and tire him out. Multiple guys. You'll see two or three guys, but you'll see Butler on somebody else. He had Reese Sticks and Waters against San Diego State and held him down until the final 5 minutes when it was kind of meaningless. But he'll get the toughest guys. But he's also a very, very savvy guy about getting to the rim, and he shoots again. He's another 40% shooter from 3-point land. He's shot a lot of free throws the last few games. He's getting to the basket more. He may end up being, we always talk about portal and who's going to come back. He might be the number one player on the list of guys you hope to get back next year, because he was a top 100 player originally recruited by Illinois. He left Illinois after the assistant coach that recruited him left and went to another school. He went to Washington and sat on the bench for Danny Sprinkle up at Washington last year. He had been recruited by CSU. He's a top 100 player out of Marin County. He's a Bay Area kid. And he's really developed into, like I said, a fan favorite for sure, but very influential player. Had 25 points against San Diego State. Interesting story, by the way, about Jace. His parents attended San Diego State. His dad played football at San Diego State. Wow. And I asked Jace, did you have a chip on your shoulder? He goes, no, not really. They didn't recruit me, but that's okay. I'm good here.
Yeah, no, exactly. If the kid's producing and he likes his situation and, the team chemistry is good and it's contributing to winning, I mean, that's a pretty good formula. Steve, I'm this Mountain West as a whole. I mean, I could talk about the league as a whole for hours, but I mean, just
it's brutal.
I mean, it's crazy because I was talking about San Diego State and they don't look right, and then they come back and beat Utah State. I guess just before we close things out, obviously, you're gonna be going crazy for CSU, of course. But I mean, this Mountain West tournament that's going on in 2 weeks, it's going to be a little bit bittersweet just because I don't know what that tournament's going to be like next year with the newcomers, just given the fan base and the atmospheres of it. But man, this tournament in 2 weeks, I couldn't tell you what's going to happen after watching these teams the last week and a half.
Yeah, Nick, you're spot on there. It is going to be an awesome tournament, and you mentioned bittersweet. I'm sad that this conference, we're splitting and saying goodbye to a lot of great rivalries and relationships that I built over the years. I'm getting nostalgic, and that's why I had Tim on my. I'm going to be. I pre-recorded an interview with him. It'll be on one of my shows that I regularly scheduled Thursday night show. But I wanted him to talk not just about the matchup coming this Saturday, but talk about his years at CSU, and then just talk about the Mountain West, not just now, but back then when we were in with BYU and Utah and San Diego State with Steve Fisher and Lon Kruger at UNLV, Steve Alford at New Mexico. And it was brutal back then. And I wanted to talk about that. And I have another show on Tuesday that I'm doing with the New Mexico guys. And we're bringing on a kid named Dorian Green, who played for CSU back then in the 2010 era. And one of the great players of all time in the Mountain West from New Mexico, Kendall Williams. I'm having both of those guys on a show, and we're going to have some fun talking. But it's nostalgia right now, and it's really hard. And I think that's what's going to make this tournament this year. It's not just the competitiveness of the teams this year, but these are teams that have played each other for so long, and it's really hard to say goodbye. And I think there's going to be some amazing competitive fights going on. Not fist fights, but just the desire to win and win this tournament, being the last tournament in kind of the era of what I consider an unbelievable Mountain West Conference. This conference is unforgiving. It's high major basketball that they try and peg as mid majors, and it's going to be something in 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, it's crazy because you got New Mexico, San Diego State, flirting on the bubble, and you got the 4-5, and that jumbled up mess in the middle of the pack that are capable of winning games as well. So I'm very, very excited to see it and just see how it all goes down. And just to build off one of your points there. I've asked Coach Miles after almost every single team that's departing for the Pac-12 next year. And what do you make of going up to Boise one last time? Like, that's got to stink. And he gives me the same answer every time. I didn't ask him today for CSU just because I've asked him so much. But Tim Miles is he was I guess you want to say true OG of the Mountain West. Like
absolutely. That was an era that you're too young to remember it, but those years that Tim was here and he talked about it, when he took the job at CSU, he's good friends with Greg McDermott, who's the head coach at Creighton now. Mm-hmm. And McDermott said, "You're crazy. You should take a job in the Missouri Valley. You're going from North Dakota State to high major basketball. They don't call it high major, but you're going to NBA level athletes, and you're going to very tough programs to play, and you're going to be in for it." And of course, he was 0-16 his first year, and I think he won 2 games in the conference the second year. And by the 5th year, he had an NCAA at-large team. You know how good a coach he is. You know how he was fantastic. But it took him a while, but yeah, he is one of the OGs, and it was fun talking to him. By the way, I need to share something with you that had me laughing. You were talking about the players and Tim using timeouts because his players are tired. He told me something today. I don't know if he talked to you about it, but he had his players begging in Boise to take a timeout because he had to play 4 guys for 40 minutes, and there was a point where they just begged for a timeout, and he called the timeout. He brought him over, and he said, "Look, you're complaining that you're playing 40 minutes. He started hammering on him. He said, 5 years from now, when you're not playing basketball, you're going to go, "God, I'm so glad I got to play 40 minutes a night." And he tried to get them to realize how blessed they are, that sometimes it's better to be on the floor than it is to be on the bench. And that's Tim and the way he motivates people. And they played well up in Boise. I was impressed with the way they played against a good Boise team.
Yeah. Now, I'd say since I'm trying to go back to it, but I would probably say since the Colorado State game, like that road trip, the Colorado State at UNLV, you've kind of seen the team take a turn a little bit. And, I don't know what the injury situation is going to look like. His Coach Miles' guest is, as good as everybody else's. But, if the team gets healthy, I'd be very interested to see. And Steve, Coach Miles, you talked to him today. Whoever they draw in the first round, they're going to be in it for at least 30 minutes, and it's going to come down to the wire, and we'll see. We're going to know if they run out of gas or, if they're playing for the final shot. He's one coach you don't want to play against. Of course, we would love to get into right now CSU is tied for 6th with, and they would win the tiebreakers today with Boise State and UNLV. It would be the 6-11 game, and who would it be? It could be San Jose State right now. That's who it would be if it was played today. No one wants to play Tim Miles in a tournament. You know that. 2 years ago, we had an NCAA at-large team, and we had to beat San Jose State. And it was a slog. San Jose State was in the game, and it took an extraordinary performance by one of our bench players, Joe Palmer. Yeah, I remember
came
that
off the bench and just went on fire, and that's what won the game for CSU. And you couldn't always count on things like that. They had to really play well, and so Tim's going to have them ready. He was sandbagging me today. He said, "Oh my God, we're going to get killed on Saturday." And I've played enough golf with him. I said, "Tim, you're sandbagging. You're asking for strokes right now. You're not getting them."
Oh man, yeah, nah. Coach Miles is the best. Great personality. He'll answer any question you ask him. So, San Jose's lucky to have him. And man, like year 5, he had the terrific year, 2 years ago with Amari Moore, and he won Coach of the Year. Last year's team was a lot of fun with Josh Aduje, and he was a great leader for that team. They got a terrific player, and when he went deep sea diving with Kobe Garland from Longwood,
Yeah.
I mean, he finds these guys, and people like the system too. So it works out well. Just this year they're dealing with the injuries. Steve, always appreciate the time. Pleasure to get you on the podcast. Cracker College Hoops on YouTube. You're gonna have the Tim Miles interview tonight. So everybody go check that out. Steve, appreciate you. We got to do this again. We'll get you on, maybe during the off season or next season, maybe just to get your thoughts on, just the movement to the Pac-12, but awesome stuff. Thanks for coming on.
Nikki, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. I love the work you're doing. Keep working hard and building not just your career, but keep pushing on San Jose State basketball, men's basketball, because as you said, you've got a coach. There isn't a better coach in the Mountain West. He doesn't maybe have the resources everybody else has. It's an uphill battle, but he's a pleasure. He's a joy to get to know, and he really is as good a coach as there is in the conference. So keep up the great work. I appreciate you having me on, and I hope we get a great game on Saturday.
There you have it. Steve Ivey, that does a great job, covering CSU men's basketball. Man, I mean, you heard the conversation, like with Coach Miles being, at Colorado State, like just a true Mountain West OG. And, that's what we were saying with Steve, like that's just what absolutely stinks about the Mountain West breaking up. CSU, SJSU, like, series history might not tell you a whole lot much, but man, like this is a big game. And, for, just the two coaches that are involved, Tim Miles and Ali Farokhmanesh, it's almost kind of like the teacher versus the student, right? And I think that makes for a fun storyline here that we got this weekend. Great stuff with Steve. Appreciate his time. We'll be back next week, recapping this game. We'll talk San Jose State, Fresno State, and talk about the massive Mountain West games that are coming up. Or that happened on Saturday. Those results, we got New Mexico and San Diego State being a big one on Saturday. Late morning, high noon out there. In Albuquerque, should be a fun one at the pit. But we'll be back early next week. Talk Mountain West. We get into some tie-breaking scenarios and things like that in the final week of the regular season. We're gonna have some other guests, just kind of covering college basketball as a whole. Conference tournaments, things like that. So as always, like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate the love from everybody. Once again, I'm your host, Nick Urias, and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast.